Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for dialing into the Return to Rugby webinar. This has been recorded on the 5th of November and it's providing an update on the new levels framework and some updates that have come in as of the 5th, which changes some of the guidance that we released on the 2nd of November. This webinar, as I said, has been pre-recorded and will be uploaded to the Scottish Rugby website later on. And we'll also publish the updated documents later on today, and that will be on the same page of the website. Myself and Jen Griffin will be taking this through the webinar today. We'll provide an update of the levels and then go into some specific information about training and travel guidance, and then hospitality and changing rooms. So the Scottish Government Levels Framework that I'm sure many of you are familiar with now is a new strategic approach to outbreak management, and it covers 5 levels, 0 to 4, and they are graduated. These levels will be implemented nationally and or locally, likely to be on a local authority basis, and it is possible to move up and down the levels within the new framework. They'll be reviewed weekly by the Scottish Government, with the next review date next Tuesday, and with implementation every Friday. So very, very regular updates, and we'll keep our clubs and schools up to date on which local authorities are in within each area. But there is a postcode checker that you can use to find out which area you're in, which we'll come on to later on. So Return to Rugby Levels framework that we've produced aligns directly with the Scottish Government strategic framework. It does replace the Return to Rugby roadmap, so we will no longer be referring to stages 1 to 6, and we will be now referring purely to our levels framework. This will be implemented, or has been implemented since the 2nd of November, but as of today, which is the 5th of November, there are a few updates which we'll take you through in a moment. It is subject to change at any point, and as I said, we've seen some updates already due to some changes in government guidance, but this framework is subject to change at any point due to changes in government policy and or new research that may come out. So just as an introduction, on the right-hand side, that's a one-page document that is part of the documents that we've published and available for download. It's a summary of what is and isn't permitted within each level, both from an off-field perspective and on-field perspective. Each level has its own one-page detailed document as well that will be available for download, and that includes all the updates that we've made since the 2nd of November. So this is an overview of all the different levels. I'm just going to take you through what is and what isn't allowed within each level now, but this ranges from individual training through to group sizes. Jen will take us through later on around about hospitality, catering and indoor activity. So from a level 0 perspective, individual training, touch rugby, modified contact are all able to be undertaken in level 0. Individual training obviously being fitness activities, etc. Touch rugby, any format of touch rugby is permitted. I'll go into that in a moment later on. And modified contact, e.g. 1v1 tackle. From a full contact training and friendly match perspective, it's not permitted at the moment. However, we will be looking to communicate more information on this at a later date in November. Competitive fixtures, as per previous communications, won't resume until January 2021 at the earliest, and we'll look to communicate more information on that in the near future. Group sizes are consistent throughout all levels, so maximum of 30 people, including coaches at any one time, and we'll come on to more specifics about what that means for each age group in a moment. Level 1, exactly the same as level 0, the same as level 2, exactly the same as level 0 and level 1. When we move to level 3, this is where we have some differences in terms of what youth and adult participants can do. And this has changed since the guidance we released on the 2nd of November. And I'll take you through what that means now. So when we come to individual training, previously we announced that at youth and adult rugby, touch rugby would be able to be undertaken in level 3. Since then, we've received updates from the Scottish Government that now will restrict adults to only individual training in level 3, and that must be physically distanced. So players can only take part in activities where they don't encroach within 2 meters of each other, but they can still use a ball, and I'll come on to that in a moment. In the youth game, individual training, touch rugby, modified contact is still able to be undertaken. It's only within the adult game that touch rugby and modified contact can't take place. And that's for people aged 18 and over on the day of activity. Again, full contact training and friendly matches is not able to be permitted at the moment. However, when we do get to the situation where full contact and friendly matches are permitted, it will only be in the youth game that will be allowed. So in the adult games, for those 18 and over, in levels 3 and in 4, we won't be allowed full contact or friendly matches at any time. That's the same, obviously, for competitive fixtures. Group numbers stay exactly the same. In levels 4, we become to more stringent restrictions. It will be the situation where for youth and adult, the only individual training that is physically distant will be permitted. So no touch rugby and no modified contact or full contact in a level 4 area. At the moment, we don't have any areas within Scotland that are impacted by level 4 restrictions, but we do need to obviously prepare ourselves for that eventuality. Just to reiterate again, in level 4, that no competitive youth or adult competition will be permitted, and no full contact training or friendly matches. So let's go through some further details that link to this, starting off with the age groups. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a split between what is defined as a youth and adult within that level 3. It's a Scottish Government policy that a youth participant is defined as someone who is 17 or under on the day of activity. This doesn't impact levels 0 to 2 because naturally there's similar restrictions in place for youth and adults. So our current age banding policies apply. So if we look at when can a mix of youth and adult players train together, well, they can't play touch or modified contact together in level 3 or 4. So in a club setting, if you're in a level 3 area at the moment, youth players who are age 17 and under on the day of activity can undertake touch rugby or modified contact rugby, and obviously individual training, but the adults cannot. So there can't be any mixing of adults and youth when they're regarding touch, because it's only the youth game that's allowed to play touch or modified contact activity at the moment. So individual training, adults in level 3 and 4 and youth in level 4 can only participate in individual training with physical distancing. So this is the updated guidance from what we're sharing today, and this has changed since our initial communication on Monday the 2nd. So adult players cannot encroach within 2 meters of each other within this training. Ball transfer, i.e. passing activities, is permitted, with obviously regular cleaning of the ball, but no use of tackle shields, scrum machines, sleds, etc. And this is obviously a change to guidance based on our updated information from the Scottish Government. The updated guidelines regarding numbers in the bubble are below. So 30 people per group or bubble, including coaches at all age groups. P5 and under, 30 people per quarter pitch. P6 and above, 30 people per half pitch. And multiple groups of bubbles are permitted at any one time. So for example, if there is a group of young players playing touch, there can be one group on one half of the pitch and another group on the other half of the pitch. And that's to allow clubs to have multiple bubbles at the same time. So touch rugby, all variations of touch rugby is permitted, as is unopposed run-through type activities, as long as there's no contact made, touch only. Festivals and tournaments are permitted, but as long as no more than 30 people, including coaches, interact during any one session or day. And again, the same bubble size information applies. So touch rugby, just to reiterate, is only permitted at levels 0 to 3 in youth game and 0 to 2 in the adult game. Modified contact training, very consistent with our previous guidance on modified contact. So only a 1v1 tackle plus one player from each side can compete for the ball. 1v1 scrum and line out, jump, throw and catch activities can take place in a skill activity. In a game setting, so a small sided game, 10v10 for example, you can have a tackle and someone competing for the ball from each team, but no scrum or line out activities in a game setting, only in a skill practice. Maximum 30 minutes of modified contact activity per session, but there's if we go back to the touch situation, there's no limit on time for touch activities, only for modified contact training. And again, same information applies for the bubble sizes and pitch areas. This is permitted the same as in touch, so 0 to 3 for youth and 0 to 2 for adult. Full contact training and friendlies isn't permitted at the moment. We will communicate more information on this in November, but just to reiterate, when it is permitted, 0 to 3 for youth and 0 to 2 for adult. Competitive fixtures was announced that January 2021 will be the earliest it will be resumed. But obviously, given the current guidance from the government, there are going to be specific challenges around the resumption of competition at both the youth and adult level due to the restrictions in place in level 3 and 4. So we are looking at the impact of this over the coming weeks, and we'll look to communicate further information later on this month. Moving on to the levels, the Scottish Government have a postcode checker, and this information is just a snapshot of that. No local authorities are within level 0 or 4 at the moment, but that could change on a weekly basis. But that postcode checker, you can type in the postcode of the club or the venue, and it will immediately tell you what level you are in and what the restrictions mean. We also have a one-page guidance document for each level, which you can refer to. There's obviously some travel implications and some travel guidance that we've updated and we can provide more information on now. And that this information is also available as a download. So the general guidance is that participants can travel freely for organised sport and physical activity within their local authority area. Participants should travel by foot, bike or car to avoid public transport where possible. Obviously, from a car perspective, no car sharing at the moment. So if we look at our levels, from a level 0 to 2 perspective, youth participants can travel to and from level 0, 1, 2 and 3 areas, but not 4, to take part in rugby activity. And once competition is permitted, that will also include competition. Adults, on the other hand, can only travel between levels 0 and 2 areas for rugby activity, and they should not travel into level 3 or 4 areas for rugby activity. So if an adult player, let's say their club is within a level 3 area, they cannot travel into that area, and vice versa. If they reside in a level 3 area and their club is in, let's say, a level 2, they cannot travel to that area. There is a small exemption for that, which I'll come on to in a moment. So for level 3, youth participants can travel to and from a level 3 area, but not level 4. Parents, however, must transport their children for sport into a level 3 area, can transport their children for sport into a level 3 area, but must not congregate or attempt to spectate if they are doing that. So for example, if a child lives in a level 2 area, but is looking to undertake rugby activity in a level 3 area, and the parent or carer is transporting them, that is allowed, but the parent cannot congregate or spectate. Any other situation in level 0 to 2, the parents are allowed to spectate 1 per child. The difference for adults is that adults who live in a level 3 area should not travel further than 5 miles out of their local authority area to take part in rugby activity, and only where it is absolutely necessary. From a level 4 perspective, participants of all ages should not travel in or out of level 4 areas for the purpose of rugby activity. And from a competition perspective, once permitted, players and teams should not travel in or out of level 3 or 4 areas to train or play. And that is applicable to both youth and adult. Coaches, however, have an exemption that they can travel for paid or voluntary activity throughout any of the levels. And this is to ensure that activity in the other areas actually can take place. As a coach is obviously a vital cog in the wheel in terms of making those activities safe and accessible to people from all age groups. So that information there is on a one-page document that will be available online, but that's a summary of the guidance. Sport Scotland also have separate guidance, as do the Scottish Government, on this for other areas out with rugby, and we have guidance sort of signposting people to that information on our downloads. Thanks for listening into that regarding the on-field side of things. I'm just going to hand over to Jen, who's going to talk us through facilities and hospitality.
Thanks, Neil. So as Neil's outlined, there's been some changes on field as we've explored and had further conversation with Scottish Government on the guidance. So I'm just going to take you through what the updates are in terms of indoor facilities and hospitality. So if we just take level 0 just now, this does remain the same. So we have stadiums open with restricted numbers. What I would say on this is we will come back to you with updated guidance on stadia when we're looking into competition and how clubs should manage having spectators in. So that will come. There's no formal guidance just now. We will still stick to one parent per child. And as Neil said, just keep those travel restrictions in mind. So for changing rooms at all levels, changing rooms can be used with the outlined restrictions and guidance that we have on our website. And there's a link as you click into each, there's a hyperlink within each box that will take you to the guidance. So those can be used at any time and any level, as long as you adhere to those guidance and it's safe to do so. In terms of indoor physical activity and sport, everything is permitted at level 0 and gyms can open. And when we look at hospitality, sales of alcohol can be permitted indoors and outdoors, and food can be consumed on the premises as well as takeaway. And if we just look at the bottom, household gatherings remains at 8 people from 3 households indoors and 15 from 5 outdoors. So as we move across to level 1, the first change is the indoor exercise for youths can continue to be contact or modified contact. Adult, there should be no contact activity. What I have gone to ask for clarification on is if equipment can be shared and if adults need to remain physically distanced. Once we have this update, we'll give you that information, but we're just waiting a bit of clarity from that. So for now, can you please just follow the indoor physical activity guidance that's on the website? Gyms can also be open and the sale of alcohol is permitted indoors and outdoors, same as level 0, and food consumption on the premises and takeaway are both permitted. The change comes in social gatherings. The number of households reduces, as does the number of individuals. So we go to what we've known previously of 6 people from 2 households, outdoors or in hospitality settings. And that's the same for levels 2, 3 and 4. So when we move on to level 2, there is no spectators allowed in the stadia. Again, changing rooms can be open. There is still no adult contact activity, but for youths, it remains as is in level 0 and 1. And again, gyms can remain open. Hospitality, there does become a bit more restrictions on that. So alcohol can only be served indoors with a main meal, okay? But the rest just follow the guidance in levels 0 and 1. And again, the household numbers remain the same as level 1. As we move on to level 3, stadia remains the same. We cannot have spectators in. And the indoor physical activity reverts to individual exercise and training only for adults. And those under 17 and under can still participate in group indoor physical exercise. Again, I've just gone back for some clarification on if equipment sharing is allowed at that point. Gyms can remain open, but it must be for individual training and exercise only. So at this point, there should be no squad training or led group training. Players can train themselves on their own individual programmes. And hospitality restrictions, again, get a wee bit tighter here, with no permission to sell alcohol, but you can serve food. It's only on the premises and takeaway. When we look at hospitality, I'm going to come on to this a wee bit later, there's some key time restraints on each of the levels, and we'll outline those also. As we move to level 4, again, the restrictions come in. So stadia is not allowed to be open. It continues to be like that. Indoor exercise for adults or youths must halt, and those indoor spaces must close. Gyms must close, hospitality must close, but the same amount of people, 6 from 2 households, can meet outdoors, but all, and basically facilities at that point have to close. So just as we move on to the hospitality time restrictions, in level 0, there will be licensing times that apply. They're not currently outlined by the Scottish Government, so please do check with your licensing board should you move into a level 0. Level 1 indoor is the same as outdoor. 9:30 is the last entry and 10:30 is the close time. As we move into level 2, just a quick reminder, alcohol can only be served with main meal. And the indoor, last entry for indoor is 7 with a close of 8, but outdoors remains 9:30 last entry and 10:30 to close. Level 3, where there is no sale of alcohol permitted, it's only food on premises. Last entry is 5 p.m. with a close of 6, and outdoors is 5 p.m. with a close of 6, and again, no alcohol. And as we move on to level 4, as said previously, all hospitality must close at that time. So just to give you a wee bit more of a summary on gym usage, gyms can remain open. That's absolutely fine as long as the protocols and guidance that we've outlined previously, which is still available on the website, as long as all of that is maintained throughout, really paying particular attention to maximum capacity, intensity of high intensity of and frequency of cleaning, along with adhering to the ventilation guidelines. Training in outdoor spaces is preferred to indoors due to the reduced risk of transmission. However, I appreciate that's not always safe and not always possible to do, but if you can have squads training outside on gym kit as long as everything is cleaned after each individual use. And just a wee reminder that once we get to level 3, indoor exercise only in terms of gyms, and in level 4, the gyms must close. Just on to changing rooms, they are an increased risk area of high transmission. However, we do recognise that as we come into winter, the need for changing rooms for player welfare absolutely will come into play. Where possible, still encourage people to arrive changed and leave to go home and get changed and showered. But there is some additional information and guidance available on the website, which outlines clear guidance on usage of changing rooms and when it is and isn't viable to use them. This is absolutely based on the Sport Scotland guidance, which goes into real clear detail and also gives some picture examples of how changing rooms could be modified in order to accommodate usage. The thing we would say with this is, even if the showers are not viable to use because of restrictions, even following the guidance, that it's very, very strict and it's tough. But even if you can get players, especially on a wet, cold night, if you have the capacity to get players in, dried off and changed, it will just make them much more comfortable. All right, so resources that we have, we've got our one-page document on changing facility guidance, which is based on the Sport Scotland one, operational guidance, which you can find on their website. There's also a link in our guidance to that document, should you want to see it. And there's also a pre-recorded facilities guidance webinar that's now available on our YouTube channel and available on the website. If you want to go and have a look at that, it's about 15 minutes long and it talks in far more detail about that. So next steps. We will continue to record webinars and produce supporting documents and get them added to the Scottish Rugby website. And we will continue to do updates like this as we get more information through. If you do have any questions though, please do contact the Rugby Development Admin email address and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And that's all from us just now. Many thanks for taking the time to watch the webinar. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you.